Hello Tech Pros, episode 256. Welcome to the podcast where we explore the opportunities, challenges, and anxieties that technical professionals and techpreneurs face when building their career, building their products, and building their business. This show is about the people behind technology and the mindsets and skill sets they developed that led to their success. You can learn more about this podcast and our guests at hellotechpros.com and about overcoming social anxiety at anxietynerd.com. All right. Let's get started. Hello, Tech Pros. This is Chad Bostic, and I'm excited to introduce our featured guest today, Anthony Vaughan. Hey, Anthony, how's it going?
I'm doing well, Chad. How are you?
Cool, man. I'm doing awesome. Are you, you know what? I just switched over from this format where I was doing 7 days a week, which was brutal. But every day of the week had like its own little introduction, you know? So happy Tuesday. Are you prepared to be productive? Happy Saturday. Are you ready to hustle? And now that I've switched over to this new format where like every interview is just kind of its own little beast, its own little monster. I feel like I need a catchphrase and I don't have one yet. So maybe you can help me like find my catchphrase this episode.
It's hump day today, isn't it?
It's hump day. That's right. Happy hump day.
There you go.
Cool. Anthony Vaughan is a 3-time founder and the current CEO of Cognizance Capital Consulting, which focuses on bringing new and innovative content to first-time entrepreneurs as well as marketing disciplines to small business owners. Cognizance Capital has served well over 600 entrepreneurs, and that Anthony has had the privilege of speaking at colleges such as Towson, Maryland, and Mcdaniel University, where he shared his 4 years of experience. Anthony, that's a lot of entrepreneurs that you're working with, dude. I've interviewed, 200 plus entrepreneurs and business leaders on this podcast. That's a lot, but to actually serve 600 of them and help them get their startups off the ground, you've probably seen a lot of best cases and, unfortunately, a lot of worst cases that startup founders put into their businesses as well, right?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I probably would say it's about a 90 to 10 ratio, meaning percent, right? I mean, 90% of the clients and entrepreneurs that I've had the privilege of either speaking to or working with, to be honest with you, most of them are not ready or just the knowledge isn't in there. And so, yeah, that's a disappointing thing. But I do my best, and some of the people that I have in the background do our best to prepare them. So.
Well, maybe you can help us out with that exact topic today, Anthony, because, you know, I come, honestly, from a technology background. I don't come with a lot of business knowledge or expertise or sales and marketing and all this kind of stuff. So it's an area where I'm growing and I'm kind of a newbie. You know, I'm definitely not a level 10 Yoda. I'm like a level 0 Java here. And there's a lot of technical professionals who are dialing in that are, you know, they're punching the clock, they're doing their thing, but they have an idea about launching their own freelancing or consulting business or building an app and launching a software as a service or whatever it is that they're into. How can we help them like get it started and get it off the ground correctly instead of falling into those traps?
I think the first thing I would kind of touch on is something I call mental models. And so, you know, for the longest time, I used to talk to a lot of entrepreneurs about kind of an 18-month mission around kind of just collecting mental models, collecting information, collecting a fleet, if you will, of mentors, other entrepreneurs, whether it's with meetups online, whether it's infusing yourself inside of a company and working your way up the chain so that you can be, you know, that number 2 or number 3 player, you know, doing whatever you can to just collect a lot of overall knowledge around not only the product you're looking to build and kind of like the details of that, but again, the marketing disciplines, the business development disciplines, the sales disciplines. For me and from what I've seen, it's just very beneficial if you kind of have flexibility. You know a little bit about every aspect around entrepreneurship. You can move a lot quickly with decision making, and just overall you'll be a lot more effective. So if I was to give anyone, I guess the first tip, it would be just to research, just to take time. You know, if a lot of these, you know, people that are listening to this podcast right now are working, you know, 8-hour day jobs, spend 3 to 4 hours every single evening, not just reading a blog, but really going deep, really trying to figure out every single aspect of your potential idea. Look at your potential competitors, see how their website is designed, see what type of products they have, their price points, track back throughout all their social media, see how their branding first started and where they're at now, and why do you think it grew? Why do you think it dipped off? Try to just engulf yourself in all the content possible.
So what I really find very interesting in what you just taught us there, Anthony, is I didn't hear one word about, reading up on new code or learning new algorithms or writing the best practices for building a website. It was more like study your competitors, study your market, figure out the sales side of it, figure out where the audience is, what the gaps are in the marketplace, and then provide the right solution, right? But it's not just about like tech, nothing but the technology.
No, I actually have a friend that I'm not going to say he's an amazing coder. I'm sure there's thousands, maybe even millions of coders that are better than him. But from my little ecosystem, he seems pretty good. Sure, and one thing that he's not focusing on are all the other aspects of business. And so I told him this. I said, you have two choices. One, you can do what I said and create mental models. Or two, you can take some time away from your coding, which is difficult at times, but go out and seek those that you're going to put on your team that has expertise in all those other disciplines. He doesn't want to do either or. So he's in a tough spot right now. So, yeah, my biggest thing is collecting the knowledge around all the aspects. So when you're in a meeting or you're interviewing someone or you're overseeing your marketing and sales team, you kind of have a good feel for what's going on and you're not just taking someone's word.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting position. I've been in the exact same place that your friend has many, many times in the past where I only focused on the technology and only focused on the product development side and not the business development side. And it was a hard lesson that I've learned over the last 15 years of, it's not what you know, it's who you know, and it's how to resonate with that audience and get to know that market and really serve them. So when we're trying to get started, right, when we're trying to do research on like marketing 101, business development 101, there's a plethora of information out there on the interwebs, right, that we can listen to a lot of podcasts, we can read a lot of books. There's amazing content that people have developed, but sometimes it can be absolutely overwhelming. And it's like everybody has different ideas on what worked for them. And maybe it's I need to start a blog, or maybe I need to start a podcast, or maybe I need to join a local chamber of commerce and talk to local people. Like, what's a good resource where people can go, okay, here's step 101. Like, this is the first step that we do. This is the first piece of information that we need to read just to get that foundation in place.
I've actually been the wrong person to ask. This has actually been probably the worst part of my consulting, which I'm trying to improve on because I'm a little bit different. But I'll give you the first tip I'll give you, I think will bring a lot of value. And maybe you've heard of this guy. Maybe some of the other individuals that are going to be listening to this have heard of this guy. Probably the most underrated entrepreneur right now over the past, I'd say, 15 years, Noah Kagan. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah, I do. I know Noah Kagan. I was actually introduced to him online via his beef jerky sumo, or what it was. I heard that story. He's got this idea that one of his students or somebody came up with of a jerky of the month club, and I was like, oh my god, I got to eat that. That sounds amazing. And so I started learning. But maybe you could tell our audience a little bit about Noah Kagan.
Yeah, so real quick. Noah Kagan, I believe he was number 30 at Facebook. I think he was a few days or a few months or a few weeks away from being able to cash in on his stock options of $150 plus million. That didn't work out for him. But then I believe he was number, I want to say 1,000 at another pretty big company. I'm not getting the name of that company off the top of my head at the moment. But then he actually went on to have a lot of work and a lot of development help with Mint. And then he went on to build OK Dork, which is an amazing blog. And then, AppSumo and Sumo Me and all those different things, which is a 7-8 figure business now. But something he's really big on, and this is kind of like marketing / like movement. So once you get past the first step, which is just understanding general knowledge around your marketplace and your business and all the different areas you can go in entrepreneurship, he's big on validating before you put any money into anything. So something he's big on is trying to validate the idea as quickly as possible. So to kind of give you guys a really rough example, I was watching a video, and there was a guy that was creating an app that was supposed to be scaring people. It was a scary app. He realized that there was not a lot of productive scary apps out in the marketplace. And what Noah did is he said, I don't want you to spend another dime on the development of the app, and I want you to figure out how you can validate it right now on the spot. And the guy didn't know how to do it. And to speed the story up, Noah Kagan took the guy's phone. Hold on 1 second. I need to get the memory. He pretty much figured out a way to ask for an individual's in the audience's number. And then as they were plugging in their phone number, he just jumped out of nowhere and scared them. And he said, what if you were to develop something like this within the app? And this is probably a horrible story. I'm not doing a good job of explaining it, but long story short, he validated the overall concept of what the app was supposed to be, opposed to being able to spend thousands upon thousands of dollars and then realizing that the marketplace doesn't enjoy it. So to kind of zone in and hone in on my big rant here, Noah Kagan is underrated. He has a lot of great content on OK Dork. He's big into the tech space, so he has a lot of great content around just coders and developers and all these different individuals. And then the biggest thing that I would, take away from Noah Kagan is the art of validating. He has so much content on YouTube where he takes so many different people's business models and showing them different ways how they can validate their idea immediately within 20 to 30 minutes, an hour at most. And I just think from a pure action and marketing standpoint, validating your idea before you spend a lot of money in it is probably the best way to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a lot. Sorry about that.
No, that was a lot, but it was perfect. I mean, that's exactly what we as technical professionals need to hear. I mean, honestly, I need to hear that right now today because I've got an app that I'm working on. And have I done a good enough job of really validating it to the Noah Kagan methodology, right? To that level of validation? Probably not. I've validated it between like the people I live with, right? But have I gotten other people to say, yeah, dude, I'd pay you money for that? So absolutely, that art of validating is so critical. And I think we do, honestly, just across the tech space, I think we do a horrible job with it because we want to spend tons of time and tons of money like building something and then showing it to people. And we love dog and pony shows and we love demonstrations and we want to prove ourselves. We want to prove our idea by handing it to somebody instead of like an completely offline, no technology method like you talked about, like in the audience, just walking up randomly and boo, scare somebody. Yeah. Now, would you pay $1 for that app, right? Would you pay $1 for to be able to do that to your friends? I think that's brilliant.
Now, Chad, let me chime in a little bit more on this. This is interesting from a kind of getting over your fear aspect, which is very important in entrepreneurship. This is kind of going into the mental area as well as legitimately validating. So getting over your fear, being able to actually have someone give you money, like give you money for the idea, the app, the service, the watch, whatever it's going to be before you actually even create it. He's done that so many times, it blows my mind. And, reading his stories and watching his content on ways that he did that motivated me so much. I have 2 businesses right now that I'm working on trying to validate, meaning getting money for the service before it even is created. That's something that blows my mind. I just think it's valuable. I would strongly urge you and everyone else to go try to either figure out a way to do that yourself. And if you can't just kind of creatively come up with it, go watch some of his content, allow some of his knowledge and his insights and his techniques to kind of, work its way into your brain and come up with a new way of, validating it to such a degree that whether it's 1 or 5 or 10 people will actually legitimately give you money. Because once that happens, anyone can say, Chad, I'll give you $20 for this app or $2 for this app. Anyone can say that to be nice. But to actually take out their credit card and put their information or give you money on the spot, it's a completely different ballgame. So that's big. And I think that teaches you salesmanship. It teaches you hustle. It teaches you to get smacked in your face repeatedly. It teaches you how to overcome, fear. It teaches you, your tonality, what words to use, what stories to tell, how quickly you want to move on to asking for the money. Like it teaches you all these different things of sales and marketing. So that's something else I kind of wanted to chime in and add to that.
Yeah, that takes a lot of guts, right? To step out to somebody and say, will you give me money right now? Like, what cash do you have in your wallet, or what money do you have in your PayPal account that you can send me right now? And then I promise that I will provide that solution to you when it's ready, right? Or give it to a third-party broker or something like that, right? But to actually pay that money and have the guts to say, hey, Anthony, will you give me $20 to solve this problem in the near future when I have that solution ready for you? That, I mean, from my experience with social anxiety, like, that sets off a lot of anxious bells and whistles, alarms in my head that go whoop whoop whoop. That's scary. That's scary. That's scary. But you're right. It's absolutely something that we need to take more seriously. And, actually validate it. Not just say, do you think a podcast would be cool? I'm thinking about doing a podcast. What do you think? And they're like, yeah, dude, that would be awesome. And all the people in the origin days of Hello Tech Pros that said, yes, absolutely, you should do that. I would totally listen in. That would be amazing. They don't listen to the show, right? It's my audience who wants to hear the message that hears the message, not the people that were just saying, yeah, just to support me. So that's critical, man. Give money before you create it. Okay, so that's getting over your fear versus legit validating. That's pretty cool.
And you know what's insane that literally just popped into my head, and I'm sorry, this happens to me often. What if, because you're in the podcast space, what if, let's say the marketing channel that they wanted to use to kind of build the awareness of their brand or their app or whatever it's going to be was a podcast. But they desired to have some sort of cash flow as they were still building the process, and they couldn't find a way to validate the app itself. I was watching a Gary Vaynerchuk video, and he convinced, and he eventually didn't do it. It was just to show people, but he convinced an organization to legitimately agree to give him money for sponsorship before the podcast was even created, before he had any listeners or any downloads. And how he did that was he used his experience of building brands and his marketing tactics and disciplines. And he said, look, here are my techniques, here are my practices, here's my, experience. Allow this to speak for itself. And I will prove to you that I will get, let's say 50,000 or 20,000, listeners or downloads every month. And if I don't deliver, your money will be back within this amount of time. And I think it was brilliant. I think it's interesting. I think it's very hard, but I think that's another, completely out of space, idea. But I don't know. I think it's worth trying. You know what I mean? I don't see the harm in trying to get that side of it done. And I guess to get a little bit more tangible, let's say someone listening to this hasn't had any marketing or branding experience, doing that biz dev, outreach part and bringing someone in your ecosystem that has that experience, that has like the tangible, like they know how to do and they can prove it to a potential sponsor. I think that would be pretty valuable. So I don't know. It was kind of a way out there story, but it could work if going along with the validation whole thing.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's something that we all need to be looking at, right? So when I started this podcast, what I did was I looked out online and said, okay, well, what are podcast sponsorships selling for? Like, how do you price them? Who do you sell them to? How do you come up with a pitch, right? And so I did some research, did some learning there, but there were like calculators that said you have to have X number of listeners, and X number of listeners translates into Y number of dollars. Okay, so first I need to get my X up, and then I can work on my Y, right? First I need to get my listenership up, and then I can work on my sponsorships. And it wasn't until, I was 6 months into this podcast. I mean, so just very, very recently that I've heard similar stories that what you're talking about, Anthony, not the Gary Vaynerchuk story, but someone else that said, look, I pre-sold all of my sponsorships for all of the podcasts I've ever done. Did I get the best rate possible? I don't know, but I got a rate that worked for me before I had anything to produce. So I was getting paid from day number 0 before I ever decided that I was actually going to do it. And I was like, mind blown. Holy crap. How did you convince people to give you money? I don't care if it was $5, $50, $50,000, right? How did you come up with the guts and the salesmanship to pitch the idea that they should give you money without having any tangible proof of what you can do? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's hard and it's rough and you're probably going to fail, but I think at the least, and we can move on. I think at the very least, what I've learned is I try to look at things from more of a longer lens and a longer view. And if I'm just starting, like if I'm listening to this and I'm just starting, or if I have an idea, what's it going to hurt being a 33 or 32-year-old male with two kids, and I'm getting, let's say, $130,000 to $140,000 guaranteed income from my job? What's it hurt spending 6 to 7 months getting told no, 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 building up that building up that confidence, building kind of up that shield, if you will, being able to take the no's, being able to take that disappointment, because we all know that's important in entrepreneurship. What does that hurt? You have your guaranteed income there. You're just getting practice within the real life entrepreneurial space. So, yeah, I don't know.
Fantastic.
Something I'm thinking about.
Yeah, let's do it. So, tell you what, Anthony, we'll take a break to thank our sponsors. When we come back, let's talk about just that, like how to start your first business while you're working your full-time job. And once we get it off the ground, how to scale that thing. We'll talk about that in just a moment. First, we'll take a quick break and thank our sponsors. This episode of Hello Tech Pros is sponsored by you, the audience. Instead of looking for new corporate sponsors, I've decided to adopt a pay-per-value model. What that means is you decide on how much I get paid. If you're just browsing and have yet to get value out of the show, don't feel obligated to pay a darn thing. However, if this podcast does its intended job of helping you build your career, build your products, or build your business, consider becoming a sponsor on Patreon. Pick the level of recurring donation that matches the level of value you get out of this show, or make a one-time sponsorship for that big aha moment that have helped turn things around for you. Become a sponsor today at patreon.com/hellotechpros or visit hellotechpros.com/sponsor. Okay, we're back with Anthony Vaughan. Anthony is a 3-time founder and current CEO of Cognizance Capital Consulting, where he's helped over 600 entrepreneurs. Today, he's helping us understand, guys, girls, look, you don't have to build the thing. You don't have to have the best code. You don't have to invest, hundreds or thousands of hours in actually producing your whatever it is, whether it's software, whether it's content, whether it's blogs or podcasts or services. You don't have to do that before you start asking people for money and telling potential customers that they can be potential customers. You can go out and pre-sell your idea and gather money and validate it by having people actually hand you $1 bills, and then you go back and you deliver it to them, right? So Anthony, right before we left, you talked about this hypothetical person who, is making maybe $120K. He's got a safe, comfortable job, in a big corporation, working for somebody else, but he's got some nights and weekends where he can work on this business development thing, right? And so let's go to not the worst practice of actually spending those 6 to 7 months building, but spend that 6 to 7 months selling the idea. And you mentioned something that was very critical, and that's being told no over and over and over that course of 6 to 7 months. Why is that so valuable? Why is hearing the word no for 6 months so incredibly valuable?
You know what? I'm not even going to give a rant on this. I'm just going to give the reality, and that's the answer. It's just the reality. Like it's just what the marketplace is. There's so many products, there's so many podcasts, there's so many other businesses, there's so many other guys and gals that are trying to do the exact same thing through that, let's say, 6:30 to 9:30, 10:30 window of time. It's just a numbers game. You know what I mean? There's so many people trying to do it, and I'd rather an entrepreneur get used to it over a 6 to 12 month period of time than build the thing, spend thousands of dollars, and then get themselves out in the open and try to do it, and then kind of have that hit in their gut saying, wow, I spent so much money. My wife, ridiculed me doing this whole thing, or my kids or my friends, and, just all the other things that are going to be pouring down on them on top of the fact that they didn't build up that experience prior. Now they're getting told no 6 to 12 months later, after they've already spent thousands of dollars. So it's just something that I think you should do, and just get used to before you actually go out and try to do it. So there's really no fancy trick to it. It's just it works and it's valuable and it's the right thing to do.
Man, that's such a wonderful message to learn. I wish I would have heard that from you. I wish we would have been friends like 20 years ago, dude. So you could taught me that before I failed at launching my first business 15 years ago. which I did no selling. I just sat in my little room and I wrote some software, and then at the end of close to a year, I had nothing to show for it, and it was all just a complete wash and waste of time and waste of money. So now looking forward, okay, it's a numbers game. Let's get used to rejection. Let's go out there and try to pitch it and try to sell. Okay, so how do we actually do that? Like, where do we go to find customers? How do we break into this first area of marketing where we're trying to either develop, business relationships with other businesses, or trying to pitch, potential consumers on this idea? What's a great step to go about doing that and kind of getting your feet wet?
As you were talking, a few ideas kind of popped in my head around that. And I guess we would have to kind of know about the product. We would have to know exactly what it is. But let me just kind of give some general tips. Mm-hmm. Influencer marketing, once the product is done and made. Influencer marketing via, I would say, Facebook groups and Instagram will probably be your best bet. That's once the product is actually done and already made. And for those that don't know, influencer marketing are people that have big brands, small brands even, and what they're doing is they're just promoting your product, and they're going to take a fee on the back end, and or you can pay them on the front end and then just collect all the income on the back end. Any way you want to kind of put it out there. That's very valuable. Now, a tip around influencer marketing that I learned, I don't care if they have 100 followers or if they have 100 million followers. Go one by one by one by one, and you take advantage, and you have meetings, and you try to convince every single one, because you just never know. The biggest thing that any brand, whether it's tech or whether it's consulting or whether it's a construction company, so many entrepreneurs have a problem with trying to chase the big guys, right? Trying to chase those that have, oh wow, they have 50,000 followers. They have 150,000 followers. Dude, I just landed an influencer deal with the dude that has 374 followers. Because I don't know which one of those 374 followers could maybe impact me. Maybe could see something and just ran into some money and wants to buy one of my 12-month packages, or my consulting. Maybe he knows a guy or gal that can get me a speaking engagement for $5 or $10 grand or $3 grand or whatever it's going to be. You just never know. And I'm big on you just never know. You have to. You can't be fancy. You know what I mean? Like, you're in your first year, you're in your first 3 years, you're in your first 5 years, you're in your basement, you're in your spare bedroom that you turn into an office. Like who do you think you are? You know what I mean?
Right.
So it sounds brutal, and I probably sound like an asshole right now, but I just think it's valuable. I really, really do. I just think it's valuable, and that's one way. A few other marketing channels would definitely be Twitter advanced search. I'm huge on. That's how I found you, Chad. Twitter advanced search, going and typing in keywords around the topics or interest or categories of your product, and start to build context, community, relationships, conversations around the topics of your brand. So whether that's providing educational value, whether that's just having literally just general conversations, and then having the link to your product so people then can go see what you're about, and then they'll be like, oh, wow, you're doing this. Well, I'm doing something similar. That could potentially lead to a business development deal. So, yeah, we can go down those two rabbit holes a little bit more, but those are two that are very, very, very important.
So we talked about how influencer marketing is a step to put in place once the product is done, right? And I absolutely agree with you, right? The size of the influencer is not as important as the quality of the influencer, meaning who are the people who are listening and following these people? Are they the exact match of the people that you're trying to get, or are they somebody completely different? Or are they really going to go all out and promote you, or are they just going to send out one little tweet and forget about you and try to cash that paycheck? So maybe let's talk about that Twitter advanced search a little bit, because that sounds like something that we can do on the cheap, and maybe we don't have to have a product fully fleshed out and ready to go, where we can start building our own influence by having those conversations with people.
Yeah, so I'm going to try to give you a tangible example. I just got done signing a deal where I'm advising a tech company that is creating an app with virtual reality capabilities coming in the future, pretty much around being able to tour a museum. All right. And this is primarily for I believe he said, and correct me if I'm wrong, if this gentleman's going to ever listen to this, but it's from 6th graders through 12th graders, I believe, was kind of the demographic. And, being able to have the headsets within the classrooms, as well as having the apps and being able to kind of go through the museum without actually leaving, and kind of being able to experience and get knowledge and kind of jump into the different, topic points that they're going to be presenting at the museum as if you were there. So it's something he's working on. It's pretty interesting in a certain niche. It doesn't blow my mind, but at the same time, I can definitely see the value from a teacher's perspective because of budgets and all different things and travel time and all this good stuff. And it kind of allows the kids to kind of get a little bit more into history than they were prior. But anyway, we've been doing Twitter advanced search for him. And what we've been doing is we've just been building relationships with teachers that way and speaking about the topics that they care about. And it doesn't necessarily have to be related to the app itself. That's what something I think is very valuable. You can start the conversation around OKC, around the Baltimore Ravens, around Donald Trump being on Time Magazine. Mm-hmm. You can start the conversation there and then use your conversational intelligence to lead the way to turn the conversation into something valuable to potentially get on the phone call to tell them about your app or whatever the case is going to be. So that's what I call kind of context marketing, jumping into a conversation around their context, around their beliefs and their values and their perspectives, opposed to being kind of really salesy. Another thing that we're doing is doing educational style marketing, literally jumping in around different keywords around the app and just going in and adding crazy amounts of value. So maybe that's giving tips and insights to a student that's having problems in a history class. And I don't want to say giving that individual the answers, but helping that person find the answers, doing whatever it takes to, again, just to build the community around the centralized topic of that app and what it's eventually going to be. So our goal is to build community of teachers as well as students, and hopefully through context marketing and educational marketing, kind of finding them on Twitter. Hopefully we accomplish that. So
fantastic. So spoiler alert, what keyword search did you use to find Hello Tech Pros?
Ooh.
Put you on the spot.
I'm trying to think. Well, it's me, and I have about 4 other people that kind of help me out. It's You can just say, look, Chad, we searched for the word awesome and your picture came up. That's an acceptable answer. We'll take that one. That's what it was. Yeah.
All right.
I'm actually going to get back to you on that. It's going to pop in my head. Yeah, I can't remember.
Very good. We'll put it in the show notes. It's all good. Yeah. Anthony, before we go and leave this conversation, do you have any final words of wisdom for our audience? Then please share the best way that we can connect with you and learn more about marketing, and then we'll say goodbye.
Yeah, I do. And this is something I was thinking about. Now, Chad, do you have anyone, do you think, in your community that may not be a coder or a developer, but they have a passion and an idea around building a tech company?
Yeah, I know that there are a number of people who come off of Product Hunt. So a lot of people who have reached out to me or started listening to this podcast come from the Product Hunt product, which is awesome because they feature brand new products every day, the latest and greatest tech. And a lot of people are listening because they want to learn more about entrepreneurship and more about techpreneurship. And so, yeah, absolutely. There's probably folks out there who aren't software developers, who aren't tech builders, but love the tech industry and love the business of tech.
Okay, great. So that's actually the individual, the story that I was just giving you, the client that we just signed on. He's actually not a developer, but he has this idea, something that's going to be very impactful for him that a few of my individuals in the background are going to be taking time doing is we're going to be spending about 3 weeks. That's the kind of the max amount of time we're going to be doing it. And we're going to try to find him meetings and trying to build relationships with developers, with coders, and see if someone loves the idea enough to come in and do a joint venture and do a partnership. Because a lot of the money that's being eaten up through his investments that he's trying to get is through development, like actually developing the product. Right. And he'll save a lot if he can find someone that can kind of latch onto the idea. So I think that's very interesting. I know it's a very general tip, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard it before. But going back to the beginning of this conversation, having the energy and the fortitude and the hustle to go one by one for 2 to 3 to 4 weeks, 4 or 5 hours a day, and actually trying to find them, opposed to giving up and just giving up a large chunk of your company because you need more money to develop it is something that I really want my client to win on, and I think it could potentially bring value to the people listening.
Cool, man. Awesome. Where can we get a hold of you?
Instagram at, I don't know why I paused there, at Cognizance Capital Consulting, Facebook, same name, Twitter, Cognizance C. There's a lot of great content on medium.com at Cognizance C. So I have a lot of content on YouTube as well. And yeah.
Awesome. Anthony, thank you so much for joining me on Hello Tech Pros today. I really value this conversation because honestly, as techpreneurs, as technical professionals, we tend to, as an industry, just geek out about the technology and geek out about the product and geek out about the process of building the thing and not about the process of businessing the thing. I don't know if that's a phrase or not, but if it's not, I'm going to put a trademark on it. The process of businessing the thing. We don't talk about that enough, so I appreciate you sharing it.
Thank you so much, Chad. I appreciate it.
You bet. Tech Pros, if you are currently working on a product, if you're currently building an application, if you have a thing that maybe you haven't, maybe you just bought a domain name and squatted on it for a while, or if you have a few notes jotted down, reach out. I'm challenging you right now. Reach out to someone, to multiple people over the next, let's say, 2 weeks. Reach out to 10 people a day for the next 2 weeks and try to sell them on it. Not like, hey, do you think this idea is cool or not? But legitimately, would you give me $1? Would you give me $20 for this right now? Here's my PayPal account. And then deliver it to them. Feel free to reach out to me. Sell it to me if you think I am your target audience. You can reach out to me at chad@hellotechpros.com. I would love to hear about your business. And I would love to either say, yeah, here's $1. I'll PayPal it to you. Or nope. That's not for me. Look for somebody else. Yeah. You've been listening to Anthony Vaughan, and I'm Chad Bostic. And until next time, take care. The show notes page for this episode can be found at hellotechpros.com/256. Do you use Slack for team communication? Join the Hello Tech Pros Slack channel at hellotechpros.com/Slack. If this episode helped you out in any way, please leave a review on iTunes and let me know what you thought. iTunes reviews helps our rankings, which helps us grow the Hello Tech Pros podcast to a broader audience, which helps more technical professionals and techpreneurs build their career, build their products, and build their businesses. If you are a subscriber and get repeat value out of this show, consider becoming a sponsor on Patreon. The information on this podcast is free to everyone, but I'm giving you the opportunity to pay for the value you get out of it, starting as little as $1 a month. Pledge your support today at patreon.com/hellotechpros or visit hellotechpros.com/sponsor.